Whataboutism is when a person responds to an argument by bringing up an unrelated topic. Here's former Attorney General Pam Bondi to give us an example.
One word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over. The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing.
Historically, the strategy has been discouraged for multiple reasons. The first is that it isn't a real defense. If you ask me why I don't listen to Azealia Banks anymore, and I respond with 9/11 was an inside job, the question remains unanswered. I didn't see many Republicans speaking out against Pam Bondi's leadership at the DOJ before she did this. Afterwards, it was clear to Republicans that she's an unserious and even incompetent person for the job. However, I do think there's a case to be made that whataboutism can be effective in today's political climate, and I'm here to explain why. If you asked the median voter what they care about most day to day, they would probably respond with affordability. We saw this with the 2024 election. After the election, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez actually asked why some of her voters voted for both her and Donald Trump in the same election, when they both seem to be on polar opposite sides of the political spectrum. As this article from The Guardian points out, the answer is that voters don't actually seem her and Trump to be all that different politically. And as one person said, quote, "It's real simple. Trump and you care for the working class." While I definitely disagree with that assessment, that's not my point. My point is that economics for regular people is the most important thing right now. But why are we talking about trans people? Whether you've observed it or not, trans people, and especially trans people in sports, is a big discussion right now and for the past few years, with figures like Matt Walsh and Riley Gaines speaking out against them. And in March, the International Olympic Committee actually released a new policy that banned trans athletes from any female category. But at least in the US, there's actually less than 10 trans athletes competing at a college level. And according to a 2025 report from the UCLA Williams Institute, only less than 0.8% of US adults identify as trans, and only 3.3% of US youth identify as trans. We're talking about little percentage points of the population here. So I pose the question again. Why are we talking about trans people? I don't even think I could tell you. It doesn't make a difference to your gas, your health insurance, your groceries, your childcare, your rent, or anything else that you notice day to day. Yet Republicans won't stop talking about it. In case it wasn't obvious, the trans panic, along with every other culture war that's ever existed, is just a distraction. Trump and JD Vance ran on affordability, yet they're to blame for a war with Iran that's actually going to increase inflation, and 1 year into their term, they're still blaming Joe Biden for the economy. He hasn't been president for over a year.
President Trump spending much of his speech blaming the nation's challenges entirely on former President Biden and the Democrats.
When I took office, inflation was the worst in 48 years, and some would say in the history of our country. They flooded your cities and towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings.
But Americans are pointing to the current president, who promised immediate results to end high inflation.
Actually, I'm going to correct myself. I do have an answer for why they keep talking about trans people. They talk about trans people all the time because they don't actually care about affordability for everyday people. It's the same reason they talk about immigrants with a disregard for the truth. It's all about scapegoating and making us focus on these little things that don't actually matter. Meanwhile, Trump launches like a new cryptocurrency every other month. Lyndon B. Johnson actually has a famous quote about using bigotry as a distraction. The quote goes, "If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him someone to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you." Honestly, it feels like Trump heard this quote like 15 years ago and decided to use it as a tutorial instead of a condemnation. So you may be wondering, if whataboutism is regarded as a bad way to go about debate, why am I advocating for its use? My answer is efficiency. But like real efficiency, not Department of Government efficiency crap. As I said before, Trump and his allies chatted up about immigrants and trans people, but much of what they say is bullshit. According to my intro to philosophy notes, bullshit may or may not be true. Its purpose is to deceive people, so the bullshitter doesn't actually care whether what they're saying is true or not, What they do care about is if what they're about to say is useful for them in that moment. And bullshit, according to Italian programmer Alberto Brandolini, takes more time and effort to disprove than it does dispute it. That's why I always scoff when news outlets say that they're going to live fact check debates. And look, I love facts and logic as much as the next chronically online college student that actually doesn't use ChatGPT for their homework. But just like trans people, we're a small group in the US. Not everyone has the time to research the factual accuracy of the claims made on a debate stage. What I'm saying is, when the right tries to lead discourse into an unproductive culture war, we need to redirect with things that actually matter. They don't use logic to construct their arguments, so logic really isn't the best way to respond. This isn't in my script, but I do just want to say that obviously there's a limit to how much whataboutism we can get away with, and it isn't a solution for every argument ever. But I am going to say that it does apply to the culture war, because we're talking about, again, less than 10 trans athletes in the US. We're talking about less than 1% and just 3.3% of our population. They don't control what gas they're paying today. I paid like $33 for half a tank last week. It was brutal. That's it for my video. I hope you learned something. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments if you're being respectful, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.